Dan in Epsom says, just when you think things can't get any worse, they definitely will be getting much worse. My worry is we are sleepwalking into a disaster at the next election. Labour and SNP are going to destroy the United Kingdom, says Dan. Well, there is that worry, isn't there? But maybe before that happens, we'll be destroyed by Harry and Meghan, who seem to be having a pretty good crack at it as well. Let's talk to Rupert Bell, who's here with us, our royal correspondent at Talk Radio. Rupert, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
You've had a busy old year, it has to be said. I'm not quite sure when you're going to be able to take any time off, I'm afraid, because the onslaught from California is upcoming. Before we talk about it, though, let's have a look at last night's performance, the bravura performance. Great acting job over in New York, in fact, from Harry and Meghan, who took a private jet, of course, to New York in order to pick up an award for fighting racism. Here we go.
Actually, to be honest with you, Kerry, I actually thought we were just going on date night, so I found it quite weird that we're sharing the room with 1,500 people. I mean, we don't get out much because our kids are so small and young, so this is completely unexpected. But it's nice to share date night with all of you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for bringing me on this very special date night.
You're welcome.
Excuse me. Sorry, just had a vomit there. We don't get out much because we have young children. Well, they managed to come all the way to Britain and Germany and then stay around for quite a long period of time without their kids, so I'm not sure I believe that one. They've now taken a private jet to New York, which presumably without their kids. I find this couple now supremely sick-making, to be honest. Nothing else for it.
I'm sure they knew full well there were going to be 1,500 people there, and that's the point. They plan everything. And look, yeah, they've got and with a small family, you do need to plan things. But clearly they're in a position where they do have probably a team of people in the background ready and willing and paid to help. So that you just feel is another rather slightly disingenuous statement. Now, great that they're out there enjoying going to get the award, but again, the award in its own right is one that is, as far as they're concerned, or many people's eyes, is one they probably are a little ahead of the game to win it. When I think one of the other award winners was President Zelensky of Ukraine,
right.
Where you think that he's had to deal with quite a lot this year. Whereas Harry and Meghan, yes, the Archewell is a new foundation. Bearing in mind, it's a pretty new organisation.
Right. Have they raised any money for anything yet? I mean, what have they done?
Well, I can't give you. They have been handing out money for various charities. How much, I don't know, because clearly, how much they've actually received on the big projects that they've signed up to from Netflix, Spotify. You imagine their incremental payments. So it might be quite hard for them to be giving out great swathes of money. But actually, when you think that one of the reasons they got the award was for their, as cited, was for their bringing to attention the institutional racism within the royal family and highlighting what goes on there. And it really is it all sits a little uncomfortably with me. And actually, this whole thing, you know, the one person who seems to be being hung out to dry here is William, because of course he can't say anything, yet Harry is just saying, I'm the only one practically looking after his mother, and that's why it's all about him and Meghan. And I find this quite, uncomfortable. But obviously, I haven't seen the documentary. Clearly, people felt they were worthy to win that award, but clearly that performance that we've just seen there is just part of their bravado and their ability.
Their shtick.
Their shtick. And Meghan's very good at her shtick. She's an actress. And Harry knows how to wow a crowd, as he always has done, by his charm. But unfortunately, there is a big subplot going on behind the scenes, which is uncomfortable for many people.
Yes, and I think a lot of people, and I obviously don't speak for everybody because some people might be sympathetic to their case, but I think an awful lot of people in this country certainly are getting a bit sick of them complaining about everything all the time, saying that, you know, they never get to tell their side of the story and, you know, their lives were ruined by these horrible people. You know, there's a great piece by Dominic Sandbrook in the Mail today about how this is like some kind of fairy tale. I don't know if you've read it, but it's brilliant. You know, casting her as kind of Cinderella and the wicked queens over here and the horrible stepmother and the terrible stepsisters, and, you know, and it is literally like a story she's constructed, and she's saved by the prince who can't... I mean, you know, you literally, when you read it, it actually works out that maybe that's what she's planning here. Maybe that's what she storyboarded, you know, from her home in Toronto, when she thought, I know, I'll go and find myself a prince, I'll join the royal family, I'll make myself more money than I could ever dream of, and then I'll just complain about how terrible my life is for the rest of the time.
And a prince she'd never heard of,
yeah, right.
When they first say, yeah, exactly. The point is, that article, yes, it does. If you just took it away, you can actually see it absolutely right. Because let's be honest, she's got only person in her family she's talking to is her mother. Harry now is clearly not talking to many people within his family.
No,
and the eye rolling that must be going on in the corridors of the royal family and the royal household this morning must be just amazing. Yeah. And then, interestingly, you know, you are seeing that one or two people who are at the centre of the bullying allegations saying they'd quite like to speak up following the documentary.
Well, that's a really interesting piece, isn't it, on the front of the Times today. Nobody's actually named in that piece, but clearly there are those who feel that somebody should say something about this nonsense.
Absolutely, and this is the problem, because no one is... The royal family won't say anything. William, you know, again, is probably going to be painted... You know, does he not care about his mother? His mother is probably thinking, what the heck's... You know, from looking down from above, thinking, what the heck's going on here? Because she was a monarchist in her own right. Now, clearly, the family marriage breakup, well, that happens all over the place, and clearly it was in the public view and was uncomfortable. But to suggest that Meghan... You know, he didn't want to happen what happened to his mother. Well, other people have married into the royal family, and while it might not always be easy, and Kate is under intense scrutiny day in, day out, the moment that she's seen to put on weight, you can bet your bottom dollar the press will probably have a pop at her or something. You know that it's, you know, the pressure and scrutiny she's under on a daily basis, and it is just as much as Meghan, because everywhere she goes, you know that as soon as she walks out of the door, that Kate is going to be photographed from every, you know, from moment she walks to the end of that.
And you know what's very weird, and people point this out all the time, and somebody's pointed out again, the dress that she's wearing, Meghan, for this do last night, is identical to a dress once worn by Princess Diana. And it's not the first time that she's worn the exact same outfit that Harry's mother... I find that a bit weird, to be honest.
Well, you know, clearly, you know, there's a lot of going on here, and she's, you know, playing it to an nth degree. And clearly the Diana situation has played very heavily and quite understandably on Harry's life. And, you know, it was a hugely traumatic event, which obviously mirrored itself in the way the country reacted, because suddenly, when it happened, there was an outpouring of emotion, and poor old Harry and William were at the forefront of the country's mourning, and they were having to sort of be out there on show. And I don't... That must have been horrendous. And now you can blame the way it was dealt with at the time, and clearly that was a very interesting time for the royal family in the way they were, you know, at that stage, not necessarily, or certainly the Queen and other members weren't held with the affection that they may have been over the last few years. So it was a very difficult time. And poor old Harry, a young boy, I'm sure, has been left scarred. But you do know, from that time on, when he joined the army and post-army until he met Meghan, he was a fun-loving, getting on with life, and someone that the country enjoyed seeing and realising that he was number two, and he was getting on trying to run his life. But now, the sea change from after the wedding, it's a complete polar opposite. And this is what I think many people are frustrated, and more so frustrated within the royal household, because they know they can't say anything, and they, as the Queen's line, which I will keep repeating, the best line of the lot, recollections may vary. And that is the thing that we've all got to remember when we watch the documentary, that this is going to be a one-sided view, and only people who clearly are going to be putting their point of view. That's fine. That's what goes on nowadays. But we do need to see this documentary through slightly blinkered views and actually try and say, right, what is true, what's not true, and work out what the real story is and why Meghan and Harry ended up leaving the royal family, and probably while going away to make a small fortune.
Yes. Well, I wish they would leave it and then just leave it alone instead of complaining about it, every single thing that's ever happened to them. You know, and if it's anywhere near as truthful as the trailer, then I'm afraid if you find one fact in it, you'll be doing well.
Well, it's over the top, that trailer, it has to be said. And you just go, oh, my goodness me, why's this happened? And you just think, oh, dear, dear, dear. And look, you know, Netflix and basically Meghan and Harry, remember, have also said they don't quite agree with the completely everything that's being put out. And you can see that Netflix are thinking, right, we'll make this as dramatic as possible. Find any shots that help tell the narrative. Now, they may have found things from Katie Price appearing somewhere, or something from a Harry Potter premiere and other places. So, but they are trying to tell their story to make us watch, trying to make it more dramatic and trying to say this is true, whereas The Crown is faction. This is the real truth. Well, it's going to be a one-sided truth, and that's the thing. And that, I think, is going to be, it will be interesting how it plays out, not only on this side of the Atlantic, but are the Americans going to get slightly bored with this endless woe is me from two very rich people living a gilded life in California?
Exactly right. Rupert, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.